All right, so we've got about 45 minutes or so worth of presentation materials here, and then we'll have some time afterwards for question and answer. So we'll go ahead and get started and let people in as they come in here. But first, I wanted to start off by thanking everybody for joining us today. We know your time is important to you, and we'll make sure we get you out of here in time to get out and have a good lunch. Um, but again, wanted to thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking the time. This is our second in a series of webinars that we'll be doing on a quarterly basis. The first one was regarding cybersecurity and insurance and how that can affect your company and how important it is to make sure you have a good cyber liability policy for your company. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about cybersecurity and how you can be proactive in trying to protect your company against all of the cyber attacks that we know happen on a regular basis. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We will have a question and answer session at the end. So if you want to type your questions into the Q&A section, we will get to those once Natalie has finished her presentation. Also, Natalie is joining us today. She is a principal solutions advisor with ConnectWise. She has 25 plus years in IT and cybersecurity. So she is our resident expert for our partner ConnectWise here. Natalie is also an IT Nation instructor. She speaks at a number of industry events, serves on the CompTIA ISAO Governance Council. She has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering, graduated magna cum laude, is passionate about her family, threat intelligence, and Legos, which she was showing me a few of her bigger Lego creations here right before we got started. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie. Oh, one more thing. We did mention that for attending, we are going to have a drawing at the end of the webinar where someone will win an Apple Watch, which we have here in the office and will deliver to you. The thing with the drawing is that it will be eligible for people who are still here at the end of the presentation. So hopefully you can stick around towards the end and learn a good bit about cybersecurity and then have a chance to win an Apple Watch. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Natalie and let her take it from here.
Sounds good. Thank you, Rob. Hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity today. We're going to talk about some concerns you may have as a small to medium-sized business. I'm going to show you an attack, kind of a demo of an attack through PowerPoint. We're not going to really attack anyone. And from there, we are going to, I'm having a little issue with my slides. Sorry about that. Where I'm going to go through after I share some info with you. I'm going to show you how to protect your business. We'll talk about risk and responsibility. We'll talk about how we translate or cybersecurity analogies so you can understand how we take the cyber terms that we talk about and translate them to something that you can understand and apply to your business. So let's start first with some definitions. So what exactly is cybersecurity? I feel like it's one of those words that is really said so many times that maybe it's almost even lost its meaning. And Rob, for some reason, I can't see the Q&A, but I think you can. So I'm just wondering if anyone may know what movie this comes from. If you want to pop it in the Q&A, I'm just going to give you a second. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time there. So let's see if this, is it going to build? There we go. So this is from one of my favorite movies, The Princess Bride. So what cybersecurity is really about is it's really about risk. A lot of times we hear people say it's all about technology, but it's not. It's really about a business decision on what level of risk that you're willing to accept. We understand it's a cost center for you. So it's only going to make sense where it can actually reduce your business risk or save you money. And there are actually ways to build this into your processes so that they do save you money as a business owner. And it's all about people, process, and technology, as you'll see later. So what are some of these concerns that you may have as a small to medium-sized business? Well, the first one is perhaps thinking of cybersecurity as an IT challenge when really it's a business challenge or a business decision. My main priority is all things cybersecurity. Your main priority is the business that you're in and not all things cybersecurity, but only where it manages your risk at a level that you're comfortable with. You may have to deal now with a complex workforce. The workforce has been forever changed since COVID. More and more people work from home, and there are ways to protect your infrastructure, even if it is on a home network. Poor cybersecurity skills within the organization, that may be why you're here, because you're looking at Apex technology to help you with some of those skills. Maybe you don't have formalized business continuity and disaster recovery efforts, or, like everything else today, everything costs more to recover from, including cybersecurity incidents. Global legislation. There's been agreement recently in the area of AI between various countries, not necessarily legislation in that case, but there's more and more privacy laws here in the US and abroad. And one thing all of those have in common is that they apply to you if your clients reside in those areas. They don't have anything to do with where your business resides. Cyber warfare. We saw at the end of last year that ransomware attacks actually decreased because Ukraine and Russia were very busy fighting each other. Not to say that all cyber criminals come from Ukraine or Russia, but there are some that come from there. And what happens when these conflicts are over? Do they go back to attacking us? And the answer to that is yes, because ransomware has started to climb back up again. Reputation damage. As a small business, you really do not want to discount the reputation damage that a cyber incident can cost you. Well, we're not big like Home Depot or, or Target that we're going to just really bounce back or not really feel the impact of a cyber incident. So what do some of the research institutions say about what is happening in the cyber landscape? What are the most common ways that you are attacked? Well, according to Verizon, they produce a report called the Data Breach Investigations Report. They've researched almost 1 million incidents at this point. Notice I said incidents and not breaches. Breaches is a legal term. And you'll notice on the slide that a little over 250,000 of those were actually confirmed incidents. And the three keys leading to the compromise of your estate, as they like to word it, are credentials, phishing, and exploit vulnerabilities. Does anyone on here want to take a guess as to where these credentials come from? Feel free to, to pop it in the Q&A or just go ahead and think about it for a moment and I'll come around back to that. Phishing emails, smishing, all those SMS texts you get now, exploit vulnerabilities. And just in simple terms, that's when there's a flaw in software. You may have heard of the MOVEit breach. This is a very huge breach that happened due to a flaw in MOVEit software that has affected a huge number of people. And I'm sure that even many of you on the call. So SOFO's another research institution, another research source that I use. This is the ransomware. So as you see, it dipped a little in 2022, but it is back on the rise now in 2023. And we do think a lot of that dip had to do with the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. So where are these bad guys getting these credentials? Well, they may get them by phishing you and tricking you into providing them. They may get them through the attack I'm about to show you. But what happens is when they do get these credentials, they publish them on the dark web and they sell them. Now, in the case of the MOVEit breach that I just spoke of, that threat actor, they're called CLOP. And CLOP actually started posting their data on the open internet. They were a little overwhelmed by the number of things they were able to breach by exploiting this MOVEit vulnerability. And yes, someone did put this in here. Staff not having good complex passwords and or using the same for everything. Yes, that is another reason that that passwords are exploited. And I'll talk about that. I have a slide that has some pictures and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So what happens is not like the good old days where you had to be smart to be a threat actor. Now, Back when I started my career, you had to know how to code, you had to understand networks. No longer the case at all. Now what happens is we have these groups, you could take CLOP, you could take, who else could you take? You could take Lockbit. And what they do is they now offer their services to other wannabe bad guys. So these other wannabe bad guys will come to the dark web, which is, by the way, very easy to get to. Anyone could figure it out. Just Google it. I'm sure there's a YouTube video for you. And they have actually become full enterprises where they offer their services to others. So if I want to use Lockbit's ransomware or Clop's ransomware, what I do is I go to the dark web, I buy it with some cryptocurrency, and there's a whole production line, which means I can choose, do I want them to launch the attack? Or am I taking their software and I am launching the attack? And guess what? They're going to have help desks. They're going to have payment processing centers. They're going to have everything you need to launch this ransomware and to be a bad guy. So what happens if you pay the ransom? Well, first of all, if you do pay the ransom, I want you to know that you are really supporting a lot of bad things. So I personally would never recommend paying the ransom. And you know that saying, there's no honor amongst thieves. Well, even when you pay the ransom, the chances of getting all of your data back are very slim. So an average of 61% of the data is restored after paying a ransom, and you don't get to choose which 61% that is. You can't say, I want my most critical. And if you think about it, what is the incentive for these bad guys? The incentive is to make money. Your data has value. So are they spending all of their effort writing the encryption? Or are they spending all their effort writing the decryption, which will save you? Let you guess on that one. It's the encryption, right? And only about 4% of effective companies recovered all of their data. That is very poor odds. I'm not a gambler and I would not take that gamble. And not only are they coming in and encrypting your files, they may even skip that. But if they do encrypt your files, what they'll do is they'll come in, they'll encrypt it, they'll ask you to pay a ransom to decrypt. Then they'll say, hey, thank you for that ransom that you paid me. However, unless you pay me another ransom, I am going to release your data. And then they say, well, either you're negotiating with them and the negotiations don't go well, or just because they're bad guys, they will launch what we call a distributed denial of service attack. And there's a lot of technical detail in there. All you need to know is that either makes your infrastructure, whether it's cloud or on-prem, unavailable to you or unavailable to your clients or unavailable to both. And they'll say, well, if you want us to stop that, we're going to need another ransom. And then they've become very bold. Now they may even pick up the phone and call your clients because they have your data. They know who your clients are and say, hey, I have your personal data. So-and-so company had a breach because they weren't careful with your very important data. And because they weren't careful with your very important data, what is going to happen now is unless you pay me, I'm going to release it. So they may threaten them. And that's what we call quadruple extortion. So now we're going to play a little fun game. And the fun game is called the human factor. So I'd like you all to use the chat. I see that the chat seems to be working for everyone. And I want you to guess, I'm going to give you like 2 minutes. What percentage of breaches involve the human element? Do we think it's 20%? Do we think it's 74%? Do we think it's 50%? Or are we going to go a little lower to 35%? So I want you guys to guess. Put in your answers in the Q&A. You got about 1 more minute. Oh, we have some smarty people on here. Bummer. Look at you. You guys are cheating. How did you guys know? Ah, you're right. I'm so impressed. I am so impressed with you guys. 74% of all breaches are due to the human element. Could be error, privilege misuse, use of stolen credentials, or social engineering. 83% of breaches involved external actors. And like I said earlier, the primary motivation for this is financial. So I said I'd talk about some of the password practices that can get you in trouble, and I'd like to talk about them here with this slide. Um, and I just wanted to show you, there's a few stories on here that are stories that are local to the areas where you all reside or have your businesses. There is an article in here about the cybercrime ecosystem, and that's talking about the ransomware as a service that I just explained to you. And then you may see a couple of really big names on this slide and be thinking, I'm a small to medium sized business. Why would I care about ChatGPT or OpenAI or cyber criminals building malware or Facebook or Meta or whatever you want to call them today? Well, let me tell you why. Our friend, and I didn't ask permission to use your name, though I'd like to give you credit because you're really smart. So if I can use your name about the staff using the same password for everything, let me know if I can use your name and give you a shout out. That what happens is a lot of times people are easy or lazy or they want the easy button. Well, let me tell you, the easy button is a password manager, which will make your life so much easier once you learn to use one. The easy button is not using the same password for everything, because what happens if you use your business email and password for shopping on Amazon, or using your social media like your Facebook, or playing around with ChatGPT? Well, what happens is those things get breached. Facebook's been breached. ChatGPT was breached again recently. Um, you know, and what happens when those are breached? Those credentials end up on the dark web. And remember what I told you, that times have changed? These are not people sitting in the basement typing along, manually inputting passwords and usernames. No, they're using complex infrastructure, automated means, AI themselves, to go out and try to see where they get a hit on these passwords. And even further than that, those great secret questions that you may have to reset your password for different accounts, like maybe your banking account. Well, guess what? You should be lying when you answer those questions, because you're opening yourself up not for social engineering of you, but social engineering of the help desk at your financial institution. And you should be saving that information, those lies that you've told, in your password manager as well. So some of the things that happen is you see this really beautiful face here. So number one, bad guys are using AI, but you know what? The good news is, so are we. The good guys are too. Anything that can be used for good, someone bad will find a way to use it for evil, right? And that's just the nature of the beast. And the reason I want to show you this really beautiful face is not only they using this stuff to make, to do malware, but they're making these fake profiles also via automated means. Those captchas aren't saving anyone anymore. I can assure you that bad guys have found ways around those little captchas that make sure it's a human being. And what happens is there's a few things that can happen. So this particular attack I'm talking about, they target business owners, and they target senior citizens for this particular attack. And what happens is, maybe you're a business owner and someone reaches out to you and wants to take advantage of your expertise, and that you develop this relationship with them. And I'm not talking about an inappropriate relationship. I'm talking, it could be a business relationship. Maybe you share some information, proprietary information about your business, or maybe they really build you up and you're such a smart, savvy business owner. I've got this really great opportunity for you to invest in, or you're a lonely senior and you think you're going to marry someone. Same concept. And you know, I've developed this relationship with you, so now I invest, and they're milking people dry. Um, and we call that pig butchering. Now, the other thing that may happen is you may send inappropriate pictures. Maybe it is more than a business relationship. Or if you have teens at home, maybe a teen sends inappropriate pictures and then they're extorted for money. So those are some of the things to be aware of, and have got even easier with the onset of AI. So I want to show you what happens when you don't consider the human factor, or that people part of the people, process, and technology by doing things like security awareness training. So here we have a user and we have a target website. So the user is trying to get to this website. This user receives an email, receives an urgent email. That's one thing that hasn't changed. These bad guys always impart a sense of urgency to make you feel that you need to act right now. So the first piece of advice I could give you is, as business owners, you should be having security awareness training with your staff. The second piece of advice I could give you as a business owner or a business leader or anyone in general, honestly, is take your time. We're always going a million miles per hour these days, right? We just go, 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 go. And sometimes we're not thinking and we just click. Just take a moment, slow down, relax before you click and ask yourself the question, do I know who sent me this email? One. And number two, was I expecting it? And if the answer is not yes to both of those questions, don't open that document or click that link. Now, you can always call someone and confirm that they sent you an email if you weren't expecting it, but be sure to call them at a known number, not the number in the email that you're suspecting could be bad. So that's just some helpful advice here. So this user receives an email from Microsoft and it says, your account has been compromised and you must click here to reset your password immediately. Well, Microsoft is never going to notify you that your account was compromised. I mean, I shouldn't say never. Probably not going to let you know that your account was compromised. And what's happening here, this is a phishing as a service attack that is available for purchase on the dark web, should you want to make a career move. Just kidding. And we call this an actor in the middle of attack. That's why I show this actor in the middle. And this threat actor has set up this phishing website, which looks similar to office.com, but is not exactly. It doesn't even matter in this case because it happens so quickly that the user's not going to notice what we call a proxy and or a reverse proxy sending information back and forth. I'm going to greatly simplify this. So if you're technical, just bear with me. I just want you to know that a proxy sends information from one place to another. That is how a proxy works for the purpose of this very not technical explanation of this attack. So another thing I want to point out is everything is TLS encrypted. What does that mean to you? When you go on a web page and it says HTTPS and you mouse over that little icon and it says everything's good with the certificate, this does not mean you're safe. This just means all of your communication with the site, whether it is a malicious site or a good site, is encrypted. That means people cannot easily see the communication between you and that site, back and forth between you and that site. It does not mean you are safe. Okay, so the user inputs a username and password. And then this proxy in the middle forwards that to Microsoft or office.com, right? So office.com gets the credentials. Then this user did enable multi-factor authentication. That's when you get like a little code on your phone. We're also not going to go into that because there's millions of ways to do multi-factor authentication, and a lot of them are a lot better than your phone. And so Microsoft says, well, I got a valid username and password, and I'm going to prompt for the multi-factor authentication. So the prompt happens. The user gets the prompt. The user inputs their multi-factor authentication as they should. Now, I want to point out something here. Remember, I said everything was encrypted. So this bad guy, maybe they could decrypt it. Who knows? They could have information to help them decrypt it. They could crack it somehow. It's always possible, right? They may have quantum computing. They may have hyperautomation. They may have a lot of buzzwords that enable them to decrypt this information. But in this attack, they will not do that. That is not the purpose of this attack. So the user completes the prompt. The phishing site forwards that information to office.com. Office.com gets that, goes, oh, good. This is definitely my user. And this is where it gets bad. So now this target site returns what's called a session cookie. And in very simple terms, that session cookie, that is the keys to the kingdom. That is everything that attacker needs to be you. Now, I am not showing you this because I'm telling you, multi-factor authentication is bad. Multi-factor authentication is really great, but as you can see in this case, we needed more than multi-factor authentication, and we would refer to that as defense in depth. So we need security awareness training so users know, unless I'm expecting an email from someone, I do not open it and click on any attachments or click on any links. Number two, if you had endpoint detection and response, which we'll spend a minute on later, and this bad guy, remember this bad guy now has access to office.com. He has access to all your SharePoint files. He has access, and I'm just saying he for simplicity's sake. It could be a she. Um, he has access to all your email. He has access to all your OneDrive files, and he could do something malicious like forward malware to everyone in your organization. And if you have endpoint detection and response in your organization, that means you're monitoring what's happening, the behaviors that are happening on your workstations, then that could catch this type of attack and stop malware or ransomware from executing. If you have a security information and event management system, a SIM, that is capturing network traffic and capturing logs, it could notice unusual activity like impossible logins. So what I mean by an impossible login is I log in here from Riverview, Florida, and I also log in here from Albania. Is that possible within a few minutes? No, it's not. So that SIM could issue an alert. Now, if you have both of these monitored by a security operations center, which I will also speak about in a moment, then the security operations center, you would actually have managed detection and response, and they would see that something was happening on your workstations. They would see that something is happening in that network traffic or in those event logs, and they would be able to minimize the impacts of that attack. So I just talked a little bit about what we should do, but let me talk a little bit more in depth about what we should do. So defense in depth, what should that include? At this point, security awareness training is not on this list because that is no duh. Security awareness training, we should all have that. That helps us build a culture of cybersecurity. It helps us build our businesses so that our colleagues and our staff understand that security is everyone's business, and that can help minimize some of that human impact on the threats. An incident response plan. This is part of a policy, also not a technology, critical to your organization because there are a lot of bad guys out there. There are always new exploits being found. And the time to think about what you would do in the case of an incident is not when the incident is happening and everybody's hair is on fire. It is before something happens. This is something you should have. This is something you should practice. This is something, again, that can help you build a culture of cybersecurity, which can protect your business. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so tongue-tied today. That can help protect your business. And you want to involve everybody in your organization in the practicing of this incident response plan because everyone should have a role to play because diversity and different opinions and different job roles are just going to make your incident response plan that much better. Again, multi-factor authentication. Yes, it can be defeated, but so can everything else on this list. Everything can be defeated. And that's why you need defense in depth. You need multiple layers of security. The endpoint detection and response, which becomes managed detection and response once you add that security operations center, a security information and event management system. I don't have the time to go into details of both of this, but you can certainly reach out to Apex or ask questions at the end, and we'll be happy to address them. A business continuity and disaster recovery plan. Again, this has some technical components to it, like your backups. However, it also has a written plan as well, something that you don't want to be thinking about when you're having a disaster. New to the cyber industry, because the cyber insurance industry, is the request for privilege access management. That is managing who can access what. So I'm not always, so privilege access would be accessing as an admin. I don't always need to be an admin, even on my desktop computer. There's only certain things that require me to be an admin. At other times, I should really be a regular user. And one of the reasons for that is because if your account is compromised and you're an admin, you have really given the attacker a foothold. But if you're just a regular user, you have bought some time for your security operations center or these tools to detect the problem before it becomes a larger problem, right? And oh, by the way, if you want cyber insurance and you want good rates, I'm seeing more and more carriers. Just a couple of years ago, number 4 wasn't a must-have. Number 6 wasn't a must-have, and they're must-haves now to get a good rate and to get good cybersecurity insurance. So people, process, and technology, I've tried to weave this through the content that I've been discussing with you. So hopefully you understand. You can think of this as a three-legged stool. You have to have the people part, your security awareness training, your process part, a lot of those plans I talked about. And of course, there are others you can deploy as well. What I showed you was just the bare minimum. And of course, the technology, which we all love, especially me, because I'm just a little nerd here, right? And when you have a three-legged stool, what happens if one leg's shorter than the others or one leg is missing altogether? That stool's going to fall over. And the same with your cyber posture, your cyber protections. So what is this SOC, or the Security Operations Center, and the Cyber Research Unit? Well, this is part of your defense in depth. So so we partner with Apex, and together we offer Security Operations Center services, and this includes analysts, engineers, and our highly specialized cyber research unit. And these are those security professionals who watch over these tools 24/7, 365 when you're not around. And why would you need 24/7, 365 for, even though you don't work 24/7 or your business isn't available 24/7, 365? Can anyone guess why 24/7, 365 may be important to any small to medium-sized business? I'm going to give you a moment. Come on, you guys are a smart group. I love it. Crime never sleeps. Do you know when most cyber attacks happen? Yeah, someone can always get it. Most cyber attack weekend happen on weekends and holidays, especially holiday weekends. Yay! Cyber criminals aren't dumb, unfortunately for us. And that's why. And I just want to show you some of the credentials that are present on the Security Operations Center and Cyber Research Unit side, because most of these are, especially these ones, GCIA, GSLC, DWAPT, the offensive one, these are very difficult credentials to attain. They're not just a matter of studying and taking a test. You really have to know your stuff to pass this. I'm very proud of our Security Operations Center and our Cyber Research Unit. They're very highly skilled, and I wouldn't want to have anyone else in my corner. And not only that, we have a strangely low turnover. Those are usually very high turnover jobs, but we must be doing something right over here between ConnectWise and Apex, because we've had very little turnover. Some of these people have been here since the inception of the Security Operations Center many, many years ago. So what is the Cyber Research Unit? They are highly specialized people, and they spend their days threat hunting. Some of the things they do is they provide insight to our partners on what threat actors are out there and what are the current attack vectors they're using. And some of that I'm going to share with you. And I'm not going to read this to you. This is just for you to have as a takeaway. And the reason I show you this to you is because guess what? Defense in depth can protect you against these top techniques, 10 techniques over here, and against these bad guys. And that's why I show you that. What else can protect you? Defense in depth, the EDR/MDR. So what is endpoint detection and response? I already told you MDR just means the M is managed. That means managed detection and response. And that's when you have a SOC watching your back. And I like this quote to describe it. It's kind of sort of Socrates, not really. I may have taken some liberties. You don't know what you don't know. What Socrates actually said was, I only know that I know nothing. So think about back not too long ago, and you probably still have antivirus, right? Antivirus, how does that work? That works on known knowns. What the heck's a known known? Well, it works based on definitions. So It has to know that an exploit or an attack vector exists before it can detect it. So it's not going to know about a new vulnerability that has never been seen before. But guess what EDR and MDR can do? EDR and MDR, they work on behaviors, and not just user behaviors, but application behaviors and AI and machine learning and all those good, cool things. So they can work on fileless, memory-based. Antivirus can't do that. Antivirus doesn't know if Word launches a malicious software in your computer, but guess what? Endpoint detection and response knows, because it knows that the behavior of Word is a word processor. The behavior of Word is not to launch some random process on your machine that is trying to escalate privileges or see what files you have. So that can quarantine that type of stuff. Does much more than an antivirus can do. So just for you to have as a takeaway, this is just a contrast, a comparison between traditional antivirus and EDR, MDR. State some of the same things that I just told you. Managed detection and response, or EDR, can also isolate machines. So if by chance the ransomware is launched on your machine, on one of your workstations or one of your servers, and the it doesn't stop the execution, but it gets to a stage, because bad guys do try to fool systems into thinking nothing to see here, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of thing, right? But once it sees something begin to happen, like maybe an encryption act, it can actually automatically isolate that machine and stop that from happening and stop that from propagating through your business. But I'd like you to have this takeaway after the presentation. So let's talk a little bit about not fun stuff, risk and responsibility. Adulting's so overrated, isn't it? All the responsibility. Well, we call this the data responsibility pie. And notice that it is a circle, not a line. Nobody's pointing blame at anybody. But I want to make sure as business leaders, you realize that you own the liability. You are ultimately responsible for your clients' data, for the data that you should be protecting for your clients. And why is that? That is because every business has a different business objective, even if it's the same business, same type of business. Every business, even if it's the same type business, may have a different risk tolerance. What may be considered risky to one business owner is an acceptable risk to another. So when you pair with a professional partner like Apex Technology, they're going to know and they understand how to have these business discussions with you. They are also a business and are business minded. So they're going to be able to explain things to you in a way that you can understand as a business leader and help you make those decisions. So their IT part of the team is going to help implement solutions. And of course, they'll be custodians of the data, correct? But their cybersecurity and information security people, they're the ones that are going to provide you that risk insight and mitigation techniques. So you as a business leader or an owner, as that person who owns that liability, you know what you need to do, what's within your risk tolerance, and how to help them say, hey, yes, I want to do A, but I don't want to do B because I can accept that risk. And honestly, what it boils down to is, what risk level are you willing to accept to protect your most valuable assets? And they can help you make that decision. So, and I'll talk about how they can help you make that decision in one moment. But before I do that, I have another quiz for you. And please feel free to use the chat for this quiz. Just match up the left-hand side with the right-hand side. And I would start with, if I were you, I would go through this list and figure out, what do I think is worth $11 million? And what do I think is worth $1? And then mix it up in between. So I'm going to give you like another minute. I will not hum to you because you don't deserve it, because I can't even carry a tune when I hum. But we do need some Jeopardy music here, don't we? Come on, give me your guesses. I know I have smart people on here. All right, here we go. Oh, we do have some smart people on here. Look at this. Are y'all cheating? Okay, which one goes with E though? I got a couple E's, but what number goes with E? I think y'all are going to be surprised. Some of you aren't going to be surprised, but about half of you are going to be. So the most expensive thing on this list is an infant social security number. Piece of advice to you, if you have small children, freeze their credit report. They do not need to use their credit report right now. So freeze it so that when they become adults, they don't have to find out that they have been the victim of identity theft and have accounts opened in their names. So that's what the costs are. And those are the resources I use to come up with them. Now, I will tell you that the price of Bitcoin does fluctuate. So it might not be quite 11 million, or it could be 12 million. Who knows? I didn't check today. So how is Apex going to help you figure out what you need to do? How are they going to understand your business objectives and your risk tolerance and guide you? Well, that's a great question. Maybe if someone could translate techie speak to business owner speak, we'd be able to understand one another. Well, I have good news for you. There is a way to do this. And the way I'm going to explain it to you is through using a home. And feel free to be interactive on this part as well. So we all have a home, right? Could be an apartment, could be a condo, could be an RV, could be a house like the one in the picture. So in our home, first of all, we identify what it is we want to protect, right? So I'm sure many of you can relate to this. You can give me thumbs up, thumbs down, no, or something else that you would identify. So the first step is to identify what you have. Same thing with you. They're going to work with you to identify what assets you have. What data do you have? They're going to help you classify it. So in my home, if my TV is stolen, I'm super sad, but guess what? That TV that I got a month ago, they no longer make that. They make a much better TV. And now my insurance is going to replace that TV that was okay with a much better TV. But if my laptop is stolen, that has access to my financial data, that has access to where my kids go to school, that is a much different story. Same with you as a business owner. You're going to have some highly valuable, highly critical data, and you're going to have some data that you still don't want a bad guy to have, but may not be as critical to protect or to monitor to the same extent, correct? So how do we protect this stuff in our home? Well, we may have doors and windows, hopefully, locks, education, security awareness training is cyber education. Education at home would be teaching your children not to just be friends with anyone on social media because of some of the attacks I just explained to you, right? Be careful what you post. Yard signs, we love those here in the US, don't we? Predicted by ADT, Simply Safe, whoever. And protection from your side, that would be like an endpoint detection and response, right? Detect. How do we detect if someone gets past our defenses? We may actually have the alarm that goes with that sign. In our business, we may have a security information event management system, and again, an EDR, right? That can allow us to detect when someone gets past our defenses. Um, you know, in how do we respond? In a home scenario, maybe a dog, maybe we decide it's too dangerous and we run away, maybe law enforcement, maybe a baseball bat if we're trying to have to defend ourselves or our family or our dog. Um, and in a cyber landscape, how do we respond? It could be that endpoint detection and response. And yes, I know several of them go across several columns. It could be that security operations center, right? How do we recover? Let's round it all back to cybersecurity. Remember that incident response plan I told you to have? Remember that business continuity and disaster recovery plan, or that backup, which may be your last line of defense if there's a ransomware incident? Insurance. For home, it may be liability, it may be homeowners, it may be flood. For your business, it could also be liability. It could be cybersecurity insurance. It could be business liability and recovering. We could have computer outages due to here in Florida. It could be a hurricane. It could be flooding, could be a tornado, could be any of those things. It doesn't necessarily have to be cybersecurity related. Maybe your electric company has had a cyber incident and there's rolling power outages that could affect your business. So you need to consider all of these things. And that is something that Apex is going to help you do. And guess what I just taught you? This is a NIST cybersecurity framework. So that's how we're going to use it to translate what you have, how you protect it, how you detect if someone gets to what you're protecting, how you respond, and how you recover. Same as in our home. So again, these are some components of a well-designed cyber solution. Of course, it's not 1000% comprehensive, but it's a little bit more than that minimum. And how are we going to begin? We're going to begin with an assessment. So before we start the Q&A, one last thing I want to leave you with is this quote. Notice second philosopher quote in the presentation, which makes me really smart. So I started my career as a software developer. I used to have a boss who would always tell us the perfect is the enemy of done. So I looked it up and realized, hey, this is an actual philosopher quote. The perfect is the enemy of good. And why do I tell you this? I just shared a lot of information with you. Perfect is the enemy of done. The perfect is the enemy of the good, right? So if I just get overwhelmed and just sit here and do nothing, then I haven't made any progress. But if I just take one bite of the elephant and I start somewhere, just start somewhere with your cybersecurity posture. What's the best way to start? Speak with Apex about security. Start with a risk consultation. And that's all I have for you now. And I want to leave it open for Q&A. So Rob, you want to come back on and join us?
Yeah. Oh, camera. Sorry about that.
You know when that happens.
Yeah. So, as Natalie said, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat or the Q&A, and we can get to those. And one of the things that Natalie mentioned during her chat there was, understanding your business and having a partner who does that. And one thing I want to point out that we do at Apex is, with all of our clients, we have a what we call a QBR. It's a quarterly business review, and I don't hear a lot of other IT companies getting to that level of communication and involvement with their clients. And what those reviews allow us to do is really understand your business, and what your goals are from a business perspective, and how we can help with that, from the IT side of things, which it's really important to stay engaged with your partner on that. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. And I guess, like I said, if anybody has any questions, again, feel free to drop those in the chat or the Q&A. I do have a couple here that came in
Great.
sort of beforehand, and one's going to touch back on something you talked about, Natalie, as far as security awareness training. But everybody on this call is a leader in some way of their business, whether it's as an owner or an executive. So we know that everybody here understands the importance of cybersecurity. How do you get your employees to really buy into that and understand that? I know obviously security awareness training is one answer, but what are some other ways you can get everyone to understand that?
So you really need to build a culture of cybersecurity. And what I mean by that as leaders, this comes from the top down. So if you're, maybe switch up some of your security awareness training, maybe have a lunch and learn and have a different speaker come in. So they're not always here seeing that silly next that we've all seen with security awareness training, right? Maybe they have someone come in and do a lunch and learn. And the way that you set that culture of cybersecurity is be there with them. Be there as the leader. Let them see that it's serious to you as well. Get together in person and let it spark conversations about, hey, yeah, I did see a really silly email that I never would have clicked on. Did you all see that too? Well, what'd you guys do with that? Did you forward it to that? Did you share it with the IT company? Did you mark it as spam? Did you just leave it there? Some of those things can help with that culture. The other thing is making it known that, hey, we're all human. Remember, I said slow down. We're all guilty of going too fast and maybe clicking on something that we shouldn't click on, even as cybersecurity professionals, right? So make it a culture that if somebody does click on something by accident, that they feel comfortable reporting it, that they're not going to face, retribution, right? I mean, if you have a serial clicker, I mean, there may be a place for retribution, right? But if someone does something silly, make sure they're comfortable reporting it, that people know who to report it to, so you can minimize any damage, right? Because the
Okay.
sooner something bad has happened, the greater the easier your response to it will be. Maybe you'll catch it before it becomes that legal breach.
Right. Okay. And then a question I had, you talk to a lot of people in the industry, we do as well. how well do you think people and their businesses are protected in regards to how well they think they're protected? You mentioned earlier, you know what you know, right? And a lot of people here know some things about IT. A lot of the people we talk to know about IT, but maybe not experts. So
Yeah.
what's the general consensus there as far as companies being as well protected as they think they are?
I think the majority of companies are not as well protected as they think they are. And I can back that with data because uh, small to medium-sized businesses are targets because they're targets of opportunity. Think of it this way, going back to my home analogy, if a thief is casing my neighborhood and my home is locked, but my neighbor's is not locked, where are they going to go rob? They're going to take the path of least resistance. And I think about 60% of cyber incidents are actually small to medium-sized businesses. And some of my sources say it's even higher. And we already know that many, especially many small to medium-sized businesses, unless they're in an industry that requires reporting, that even large enterprises, unless they're in an industry that requires reporting, a lot of these crimes go unreported. And we know that because we do incident response as well. So we know that some of these incidents are not reported, so they're not showing up in the FBI crime report. They're not showing up in the Verizon crime report. So the stats actually could be a lot worse than any of us know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we do have a couple questions here in the chat. One, do you have resources for analyzing cybersecurity policies to ensure comprehensiveness and coverage? That's maybe a more specific question to us at Apex,
Yeah.
and that is one of the things that we do work with our clients for, is to make sure that when they get the checklist from their insurer, that we can kind of work with them and make sure they've got everything covered. So we can certainly do that. If you are a client of Apex's already, just reach out to your account manager on that and they can work with you there. And another question, what password manager do you recommend? Um, I'll let you, I was going to say, I don't know that we have one that we would speak specifically to there, on a call like this, but we do have, again, that capability at Apex. And that is one of the things we're very involved with, is making sure that you're managing your passwords. You've got the policies in place for resets on a quarterly basis, and making sure you're changing passwords as well.
Yeah, I just want to point out one word that you just said, Rob, that I really liked. You said the word policy in conjunction with
Yes.
password. I want everyone to notice that he said policy because that is not a technology. That's a written document. You should have policies to go with this.
Right.
Um, and
Correct.
I don't recommend a particular password manager. I do recommend that you do your homework. So there's different ones available for business use and there's different ones available for personal use. I do know that Wirecutter, which is now owned by the New York Times. I don't know if you know. Do you know Wirecutter, Rob?
I am not familiar
So
myself.
yeah, not LastPass. Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry. Um, so Wirecutter is where you go if you're going to buy a new washer and dryer. This is funny. So you go and you say, "Hey, what's the best top load?" And they'll give you like the best one. They'll like give you like the second best one. Well, they recently released an article that said 1Password for personal use is the easiest one to use. Um, so that would be a good recommendation for personal use. As far as business use, Rob's your man. Apex, your account manager.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have one more here, and then we'll get
Oh,
to final
yes.
comments and the drawing for the Apple Watch. What other MFA tools would you recommend other than phone?
I'm not escaping from the conference. I'm just reaching down to grab this. This is called a YubiKey. This is a hardware token. This is better than using your phone for MFA. And the reason is, again, remember when I went, I said, hey, lie about those.
Maybe she was leaving the conference.
Oh
Oh,
no. Did you lose me?
oh, there we go. It
Okay.
may have just been me. It paused there for a second,
Ah,
but you're good.
no. Okay, so this is a YubiKey, just in case it didn't make it through. This is a hardware token that you can use. They're pretty inexpensive. And remember when I said you should also lie about those secret questions? You know what bad guys do with those secret questions that are usually a lot of publicly available information? They actually will use that to social engineer your telephone company, your mobile device company, and SIM swap you, which means the minute if you're getting them all by text message here, they've got your MFA now. So this is one of the best ways. Passkeys is another good way versus passwords, but we're not all there with passkeys yet. Um, you know, just just be judicious. Another thing bad guys do is they'll do MFA fatigue. So if you're being prompted over and over and over again to accept an MFA and you know you did not try to log in, don't accept it. Don't
Right.
accept it. I'm not sure if we lost Rob or if we lost me.
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Sorry. I feel like we should be playing conference bingo right now. But before everything just completely ends, I'm not sure what's going. Okay, so Kim, who's a
There we
guest
go.
in here, spoke. Sorry, Kim,
Good.
threw you under the bus. I promised I wouldn't use names, but I figure it's okay. So if you want to go ahead and do your drawing, because we only
Yeah,
have a couple.
absolutely. One last thing I wanted to point out is, a lot of the stuff that Natalie talked about today obviously is very important for your business. She mentioned EDR, MDR, and all that. One of the products that we use is something called Sentinel One XDR, which provides a lot of the tools that Natalie talked about today. So what I would say is, if you're wanting to sort of level up your security, if you're a client of Apex already and you're not utilizing Sentinel One, please reach out to your account manager. They'd be happy to talk to you about that. And if you're not a client of Apex, we'd certainly love to talk to you. As Natalie mentioned, we'd be happy to do a meeting, kind of a risk consultation, get to know each other type thing, and see if there's a way we can help you out. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. We'll go ahead and get to the drawing here real quick. I'm going to spin the wheel, and the winner of the Apple Watch is Carolyn Coles. So,
Yay.
Carolyn, I will reach out to you here shortly and arrange to get that over to you. Again, like I said at the beginning, really want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. Again, I know your time is valuable, especially as we get here close to the holidays. So thank you again. I hope everything was useful, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next webinar in a few months, if not sooner, hopefully. So
Thank
thank
you
you
all.
very much.
Thank you for having me, Rob. Have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
your day.
Absolutely. It's great as
All right.
always.
Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
you too. Bye-bye.